It was Halloween night, 2019, and my friends and I were hosting a small college apartment party. Nothing big, just 10 or 12 people, music, snacks, and some cheap decorations we'd thrown together that afternoon. I was dressed as a pirate. Alex, my roommate, had gone as a zombie surfer, mostly an excuse to wear sunglasses indoors. At first, everything was normal. People were laughing, dancing, and trying to outdo each other with last-minute costumes. The cheap fog machine someone had borrowed from a friend filled the living room with a thin layer of mist, which somehow made everything feel more cinematic, more Halloween. Around 11 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Alex yelled from the kitchen, "Can you get that? I'm busy." I opened it, expecting maybe a neighbor complaining about noise. Instead, there was a man standing there in a cheap skeleton mask, holding a six-pack of beer. He didn't seem drunk, didn't smile, didn't say anything at first. Then he spoke in this calm, quiet voice. "Hey, I'm friends with Eric. He invited me." I froze. I didn't know any Eric. Something about the man felt off. He was taller than I expected, but his posture was rigid, almost deliberate, and he stood completely still, like he'd been waiting for this moment. I don't think that's right," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "I don't think anyone named Eric is here." He tilted his head slightly and nodded, as if listening to someone else. Then, in a voice that was almost a whisper, but somehow filled the hallway, he said, "Doesn't matter. I'm here now." I hesitated. My friends were all distracted, music blasting and everyone laughing, so it was just me, standing there, debating whether I should step aside or shut the door. Finally, I did what I think anyone in that situation might do. I stepped aside. Maybe he really was harmless. He walked in. From the moment he entered, the room felt different. Not in a loud or obvious way. The music didn't stop, people didn't notice immediately, but there was a shift in energy. He didn't talk, didn't dance, didn't drink. He just stood, holding his beer and watching, carefully, intently. I noticed him following my friend Jess into the hallway. I called out, "Hey Jess, everything okay?" She didn't answer. I ran after them, heart pounding, and when I reached my room, she stepped out, pale, almost shaking. She whispered, I went to grab my phone, and he was just there, standing in the corner, not moving, just watching." We all felt it then, that creeping, gut-tightening feeling that something was wrong. We told him to leave. He hesitated at first, but then without a word, he slowly turned and walked toward the door. When he passed me, he whispered one more time, "You shouldn't leave your windows unlocked." The words sent chills down my spine. The party didn't stop. People kept laughing, joking, playing beer pong, but for me, everything felt different. Later that night, I checked my phone and saw a text from an unknown number. "Nice party. You shouldn't leave your window unlocked." I showed Alex. His face went pale. The next morning, a plastic skeleton mask was on our doorstep. No note, no footprints, nothing else. Just the mask. I tried to tell myself it was a prank. Maybe some other college student thought it would be funny. But over the next few Halloweens, something strange kept happening. Sometimes a mask would appear on the stairwell, sometimes it would be by the mailbox. No explanation, no note, no trace of anyone being there. It's hard to describe what's worse, the mask itself or the feeling that someone is still watching. I've changed a few things about my Halloween routine since then. I make sure all doors and windows are locked, even when friends are over. I keep blinds drawn at night. I've stopped leaving drinks unattended. And every Halloween, I still check my front porch, just in case. Because that night taught me something. Some strangers don't just leave when you tell them to. Some watch, wait, and sometimes they make sure you know they've been there. Even now, I can remember that moment perfectly. The calmness in his voice, the way he moved so deliberately, the way his gaze seemed to follow me even when I wasn't looking. Every Halloween, I imagine him out there somewhere, standing in the shadows, waiting for someone to step out, waiting to remind them they shouldn't leave their doors unlocked. And maybe, just maybe, He never really leaves at all.
Halloween 2021. I was walking home from a small party with my friends Sam and Mia. It was late, around 11:30 p.m., and most of the streets were empty. The wind rattled dry leaves across the pavement, and the occasional flicker from the streetlights made shadows twist along the curbs. There was that uneasy silence that sometimes follows a night full of noise, like the world had paused and forgotten to breathe. We decided to take a shortcut through an alley we'd never used before. Narrow, dimly lit, flanked by chain-link fences and brick walls streaked with graffiti. Immediately, it felt wrong. The smell of damp concrete mixed with the faint odor of decay. Even Sam, usually the boldest of us, slowed his pace. Maybe this wasn't a good idea," Mia whispered, hugging her hoodie closer. "Relax," I said, trying to convince myself more than her. "It's just an alley, short way home." Halfway through, we saw him. A man, tall, thin, and unnaturally still, standing against the wall. Dark coat, hood pulled low. I couldn't see his face, but I knew he was staring at us. "Probably just another partygoer," Sam said nervously. "Ignore him." But as we passed, he moved. Not running, not making a sound, just stepped forward, slowly, keeping the same distance behind us. Every instinct in my body screamed to turn and run, but the alley felt endless. The shadows stretched, the walls seemed to close in, and every step I took made the crunch of leaves sound deafening. Mia whispered, panicked, "Let's cross the street." We ran to the other side, thinking distance would help, but he matched us. Every turn we made, he appeared at the same distance. He wasn't chasing us in the traditional sense. He was following, calculating, patient. My phone was in my hand. I tried calling a ride, dialing Sam's parents, anyone. No signal. Dead. Finally, I stopped and turned toward him, heart hammering. "Who are you? What do you want?" He tilted his head slightly. His voice was low, controlled, deliberate. "You shouldn't be here." Not a threat in words, but in tone it was. My stomach twisted. A cold sweat ran down my back. Every instinct screamed that we were in danger. We bolted again, zigzagging through side streets, trying to shake him off. Every corner we turned, every driveway we ran past, it felt like he knew exactly where we would go. The city around us was silent, empty. Then, just as we thought we'd lost him, a shadow detached itself from the alley behind a dumpster. He was there again, closer, moving silently like a predator pacing his prey. "Keep running!" I shouted. Adrenaline took over. My legs burned, lungs screamed, but there was no stopping. Finally, we reached a main street, lit by lamps and lined with a few late-night cars. I glanced back. Nothing. No sign of him. No sound. Just empty pavement and wind rattling the leaves. We collapsed on the sidewalk, panting, shaking, trying to convince ourselves it was over. But it wasn't. 2 days later, a note appeared under my apartment door. No signature, just 3 words, written in neat, small handwriting. "I'm still watching." I froze. My mind raced. Sam's parents didn't believe him. Friends laughed it off. But I knew. That night wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a prank. Every Halloween since, I avoid shortcuts. I never walk through dim alleys. I check every shadow, every stranger who seems too quiet, every face that disappears too quickly. And sometimes, late at night, when I walk past an alley or a quiet street, I swear I feel him again. That stillness behind me, that sense of someone calculating, waiting. Because some people don't leave when you walk away. They don't disappear when the streetlights come back on. They wait, and I've learned the hard way. On Halloween, the quietest streets are often the most dangerous.
Halloween 2018. My friends, Tyler, Emma, Jay, and I had heard about a secret college party on the edge of town. The address came at the last minute, texted from an unknown number. The real party starts after 10. Don't be late. We were curious and, admittedly, a little reckless. The house itself was terrifying before we even got out of the car. Peeling paint, boarded up windows, yard overgrown with weeds. A sense of decay hung in the air, the kind of place everyone in town whispered about, but the dim candlelight flickering from the windows suggested that people were inside, someone alive. "This is either going to be amazing or a disaster," Tyler mothered, adjusting his vampire costume. "Let's just check it out," I said, trying to sound confident, though my stomach churned. We knocked on the door. A young man in a skeleton mask opened it, grinning just enough to make it creepy. He said, "Come in." Inside, it was chaotic. Music blasting, smoke curling from a fog machine someone had dragged in, candles everywhere, casting shadows that danced along the cracked walls. People were drinking, laughing, some in costumes, some half-heartedly. For a while, it felt like a normal party. But then the host yelled, "Basement, the real party starts now!" We hesitated. The staircase was narrow, dark, and smelled like mold and wet concrete. Tyler shrugged, already moving forward. "It's Halloween! What's the worst that can happen?" We followed. The basement was colder than the main floor. The fog hung thicker here, clinging to our clothes and hair. Cobwebs brushed our faces. At first, it was just a few people playing drinking games. Some tried to joke, some tried to dance in the low light. But then, the lights went out. Immediately, the room felt heavier. Every sound, the music, the laughter, the creak of floorboards seemed louder, sharper. And then we heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming from the far end of the basement, heavy, echoing on the concrete floor. Not one of the partygoers, not one of us. Tyler whispered, "Probably someone messing with the lights, right?" But then a voice came, low, calm, almost too controlled. "Why are you here?" The words weren't loud, they were quiet, but somehow they filled the entire basement. My stomach dropped. We froze. The basement door slammed shut behind us. Panic set in. Phones came out to illuminate the room, but the fog swallowed the light. Then, in the corner, we saw it. A tall, shadowy figure, motionless, watching, waiting. Emma gasped, Is that a person?" We all realized at the same time, no one else was moving. Everyone else had gone silent. The only sound was our own breathing, ragged and uneven. Tyler tried to step forward, bravely or foolishly. It's probably just someone in costume, right?" The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just tilted its head slightly, observing. We ran, screaming, tripping over cables and decorations, crashing into each other. The fog swirled around our ankles, making it harder to see. When we finally reached the stairs, the lights flickered back on. The basement door was wide open. The main floor was empty, silent,
Not a single person in sight. Outside, the street was deserted. Not a car, not a single soul. Just us, breathing hard, staring at the house. The next day, we tried to find the house again. We drove to the street, expecting at least the foundations, maybe the smell of decay, but there was nothing. Just an empty lot. Grass overgrown, the air smelling of damp earth. Later, we found out the house had burned down in the early 2000s. 3 college students had died in the basement during a Halloween party. No one rebuilt it. Since that night, Halloween hasn't felt the same. I avoid abandoned houses. I check every corner, every dark alley, every shadow. Because curiosity has a cost. And some places, some people never really leave.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more scary stories.